And we are live.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome Finance Committee members, staff, and members of the public to this month's Finance Committee meeting. And Melanie, have you taken the roll call?
The roll's been taken.
All right. So I'd like to remind members of the committee staff and our viewing public electronic participation policy staff and delegates are reminded to keep their video microphones off until requested to do so by the chair. All rules for delegations continue to apply. If there's a service interruption, we will extend the meeting up to 15 minutes to try and regain quorum. So, members, does anybody have a declaration of a pecuniary interest in respect to the items appearing on our agenda this afternoon? Yes, Councilor Carpenter.
Yes, as always, I have a conflict of interest with anything that has to do with St. Joseph Life Care, as my daughter-in-law is an employee.
All right, we'll deal with that item separately then. Any other conflicts? Not seeing any raised hands. Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. So, members, does anybody want any of the items separated other than the items that 5.1.3, which we'll deal with separately because of Councilor Carpenter's conflict? Any other separations? I'm going to ask for 5.1.1 to be separated. I have an amendment I'd like to make by addition. And I hope you don't mind, I'll just continue to chair because there's no one else here in the council chambers to take over the chair. So, anyone else want anything separated? Yes, Councilor Carpenter.
The 5.2.1 first quarter casino update.
Done. Anything else? Well, if I can have a mover and seconder then to put on the floor items for consideration have not been separated, moved by Councillor Van Tilborg, seconded by Councillor Martin. Melanie, if you'd please read the title of the items we're voting on.
So the item subject to the vote are as follows. 5.1.2 adventure issue for long-term financing for the renovation of 5870 Dalhousie Street project. 5.2.2 treasurer's annual report on lease financing agreement for 2021 and 5.2.3 the minutes. All items not separated carry unanimously on a recorded vote. Those voting in favor, Councillor Martin, Councillor Carpenter, Councillor Van Tilborg, and Mayor Davis.
So we'll move then to item 5.1.1, the administration of city grants. I asked for this to be separated, and members, I'd like to add an amendment. If you turn to page 5 of the report or page 8 of 40, you'll see that there is a recommendation contained in the report that of the 3 streams that there be a maximum amount per application. Special events, $1,000, startup and capital stream, $10,000, operational stream, $5,000. I'd like to move an amendment to the resolution that's on the floor before us, which does not actually incorporate those recommendations in the report. And I'm moving an amendment, which is to add a paragraph C to the resolution we're voting on, and that that C would read that the amount for the special event stream per application be increased from B $1,500, B the startup and capital stream be $15,000 instead of 10, and the operational stream maximum request per application 10,000 rather than 5,000. I'm seeking a seconder to put that on the floor.
To make it easy, Mr. Mayor, I'll move that and then we can get a second and you can still chair.
Great, thanks. I appreciate that. Is there a seconder for Councillor Carpenter moving that? Councillor Van Tilborg. So just speaking to it, when I looked at this, I thought the dollar amounts were probably a little bit light in terms of maximums and what would be an effective flow of funds for these various purposes. And I think there's enough money in the annual global amount to accommodate a number of such applications. And then, of course, we have the impact of the inflationary pressures that are occurring at present. So that's my rationale. Any further discussion? Councillor Martin.
Yeah, can staff comment as to how much of this money is allocated each year? Like, is there surplus in this account?
Mr. Wallace, I think you're there. You're the author of the report.
Yeah, good afternoon. Aaron Wallace, Director of Community Programs. Through you, Chair. I don't know offhand if there's somebody from finance on the meeting who can answer to that, I'll defer. And if not, I can bring that information back before this goes to council.
Yeah, because I don't want to see good groups missing out because we give more money to a few instead of giving some to everybody that applies. So if we could have that information before it comes to council, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilor Carpenter?
The staff, in the report, there wasn't limits for the number of groups that can apply. Is it? It was only based upon the money. Was that not correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so if we well, you'll give us a number if we did increase the groups that are on the list, what that would as per Council Martin's request. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Melanie, if you please take the vote on the amendment. 10. 1,500, 15,000, and 10.
The amendment to the item carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Those voting in favor, Councillor Martin, Councillor Carpenter, Councillor Van Tilburg, and Mayor Davis.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item that's been separated due to Councillor Carpenter's conflict. That's 5.1.3, the St. Joseph Life Care request for funding. Any discussion? Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just to confirm, this is simply to receive the report. It's not approving any funding.
Yep. Joelle, can you help us with that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct, just to be received.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Van Tilburg.
Okay, then if it's just to be received, what's the information that says for one-time funding? And like there is a background, they're saying that we've had past practice. There is a request for money on the table. When would that come then, if it's not now?
Well, I'd suggest as chair that is now, and it would either be an amendment here or an amendment when it goes back to council.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. All right. So any further discussion? Seeing none, Melanie, would you please take the vote?
Just prior to conducting the vote on this item, we still have to conduct the vote on the item as amended for the previous one. Sorry.
Apologize for that. We're going back to sorry about that. We're going back to 5.1.1. You're in on this, Councillor Carpenter. So any discussion regarding the resolution as amended? Thank you, Melanie, for pointing that out. Seeing none, if you would please take the vote on the amended resolution.
Item 5.1.1 carries as amended. Those voting in favor, Councillor Martin, Councillor Carpenter, Councillor Van Tilburg, and Mayor Davis.
Right, apologize for that, members, but I'm pretty rusty. I've never chaired a finance committee meeting, so it's a new experience. So I'll go to 5.1.3. We're back to that. Any discussion? Further discussion? All right, Melanie, if you would please take the vote on that. Oh, pardon me. My vote was yes, sorry. Yes. Okay.
Sorry, my apologies. We'll just need to retake the vote on that quickly. Thank you.
Okay.
Item 5.1.3 carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Martin, and Councillor Van Tilburg, noting Councillor Carpenter's conflict.
All right, we'll now move to item 5.2.1, the first quarter casino update. Councillor Carpenter, you asked this to be separated.
Yes, thank you. Just the staff, staff are forecasting a closing balance for this year of $6.3 million. And then, is that correct? And then you're anticipating that the numbers will go up next year to $5 million? And I'm just want to make sure I'm reading this right. And then we'll have a $4 million commitment for next year and leaving us a balance of $7 million for the end of 2023. Is that how I'm reading this?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So that is correct. So that is the combined balance of all the casino funded reserves. So that would include our legacy reserve, our council priorities reserve, the community groups reserve, as well as disaster mitigation and cultural heritage, which currently aren't receiving an allocation and don't have a balance. So it is the combined forecasted balance of those combined reserves.
Okay, and then in the payments commitments, you've got the payment commitments going up, not by a lot next year, but in 2023. Could you explain that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is just largely related to the allocation to the capital program. So that is based on a percentage of revenues. 20% of revenues annually go towards supporting the city's capital program. So for this year, that allocation is 20% of an estimated 3.8 million, whereas next year it'll be an estimated 20% of 5 million.
Okay, so so we are now addicted to casino revenue actually for capital contributions. Can you bring forward maybe the next finance committee an option for how we could wean ourselves off of casino money for capital, because it's not consistent and we can't really depend on it. I guess we've reduced capital, but
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So that is part of the current policy. And the policy does state that it is required to be reviewed at this within the first year of the next term of council. So that entire policy and the allocation methodologies are already slated to come back to council next year.
okay, so that's fine. We can deal with that then. Thank you. Oh, sorry. That's fine. We deal with that then. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, Joelle, and follow up to Councillor Carpenter's questions. So how would this compare? I'm looking at the same panel that Councillor Carpenter is looking at, that page 31 of 40. So in 2021, how would what we proposed for 2022, how would it have looked different in 2020, the year before the pandemic, or 2019, I guess? What amounts would be different? What's missing?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we've tried to sort this so that everything that's under the approved annual commitments are items that have traditionally been approved on an annual basis. All the numbers there remain static with the exception of the transfer to capital amount. Every other amount in those annual commitments, is the Y, the boundary compensation, all of those are a static amount and would have been the same in 2020 as well. There would have been other approved commitments back in 2020 that were one time on these source of funds, and I don't actually have that information available right now.
There seems to be one that's missing, and that's, I thought we agreed to make a contribution to the hospital ER build.
Yes, that is correct. So that was a 3-year commitment for 2019, 2020, 2021, 3 years total. So nothing carrying forward into 2022.
Yeah, and previously the city grants program was about $1 million, wasn't it? Rather than 700,000.
The city grants program was increased to 700,000 a few years ago. It's not gone higher than that. It used to be only 500,000 until there was a capacity building category that was added in the last few years that increased it to 700,000.
Oh, okay, thanks. So any other questions? Discussion? All right, Melanie, would you please take the vote on this item?
Just waiting for Counselor Martin.
My iPad seems to be locked up. I vote affirmative.
Thank you. Item 5.2.1 carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Those voting in favor, Counselor Martin, Counselor Carpenter, Counselor Van Tilburg, and Mayor Davis.
So it would appear that there are no resolutions, there are no notices of motion, and therefore the meeting of the Finance Committee is now adjourned.
Well, we made it through.
In 15 minutes, not a record, but pretty good time.
Well,
You didn't have to go to the other room to conduct this meeting, you did it all by yourself there.
Well,
Not bad for your first one. Bye,
it's
everybody.
nothing to do with me, the excellent staff we have here this afternoon, carrying me on their shoulders. All right, have a good evening.